Hey everybody, it's October 28th, 2024. Gosh, can you believe another year has passed? I can't even believe this. But today, I'm going to try to be really careful with this one because this is definitely a series that you should not watch unless you're on the front lines of battle in these last days to literally help drag people out of the fire and into the arms of Christ. So today you're going to get the PG version of what I'm going to show you today. So that maybe if a random conversation comes up with this TV series, it's now the 8th most streamed television series in the US for the week of September 26th to October 2nd. If you hear this come up in a conversation, you can shed some light on it. Talk about deep symbolism that the people that watch some of this stuff have no idea that they're watching it. And maybe that will help trigger somebody or wake them up so that they can figure out what's going on. So I'm going to check in with you guys. Good to see you all. Much love to you. Now, who are these unbelieving people that we might be able to reach who watch these series? Well, it could be a spouse, could be a sibling or a parent, or maybe even some, anybody in your family that maybe watches the series who just brings it up in a random conversation. Here's how the conversation would go if you were discussing this with someone. So your friend or your sibling or spouse asks you if you watched this series. And I'll do a reveal on the name of it. It's just the name actually is the name of the demon. So I don't want to repeat that. I'll show it to you on the screen, but I don't want to be repeating these things. I think there's some kind of magic behind that. Anyway, your friend asks you if you watched the series, right? Because it's kind of a true crime. They're now trying to mix true crime with these horrific murders and things like that. And the psychological effect over time of seeing these things over and over again, I believe is a negative thing, which is why I'm not going to show it to you today. But we're going to talk about it. So your friend or spouse asks you if you had seen this series, and you say something like this: well, I saw parts of it, but I didn't understand most of it until this YouTube channel that I follow started kind of breaking down some of the symbols that he's found in many, many other true crime TV series, as well as places where some of the symbolism isn't supposed to be, like different genres of television and entertainment, animations, science fiction, and many other things. And that's how a conversation goes. It's completely non-confrontational. And you're basically banking on that person's curiosity because, look, let's admit this. These people watch this stuff and essentially they have no idea what the symbolism means. And they're probably curious. They're entertained, but they have no idea what black goo is, for instance, or copper being mentioned over and over again, or what purple really means, or these subtle hints about, the artificial intelligence that's going to start policing us soon. All of these things appear in this TV series. And here's the bombshell. Travis Kelce even appears in a role in this series. Yes, the NFL player for the Kansas City Chiefs is in the series. Now, he plays a somewhat positive role. He's a, what do you call it? What are those people called? He's an orderly in like a psychiatric facility or something. And he plays a seemingly positive role, but anyone attached to this stuff, they are playing for the other side. Okay. It's plain and simple because this is all sigil magic and it's under the guise of entertainment, but it's programming people. Now, the huge red flag here, let's pull up the Wikipedia page on this. And again, I'm not going to name it. You can see on your screen here what it is. And essentially, the big giveaway with all of this is that the people that watch it have no idea what they're watching. That's the big giveaway. So you have to ask yourself, why do they spend the money to write these elaborate scripts that no one knows what they mean, except for the controllers, of course. They know what it means, and they laugh at the rest of the people because they don't know what it means, right? Now, I've got clips pulled up of this. Before we get into it, why is this dangerous to a lukewarm Christian? Well, because the series is full of full frontal assaults on believers who are seeking the truth outside of the Christian paradigm. It highlights the seemingly contradictory scripture, which we know that scripture does not contradict itself, but our Christian paradigm has not given us the tools to combat those seeming contradictions. And it almost seems intentional. So it's like, as a Christian, you're set up to fail. You're always forced to fall only on your faith and not have actual real scriptural knowledge to combat some of the attacks and accusations of the devil about the scripture. Okay. Let me give you just one example of that before we get into these clips. One perfect example of how we have not been equipped and prepared, and that we are always forced to fall only on our faith and not actually have biblical knowledge. One example of that would be the sacrifice in the Old Testament to the Most High. Okay. And so what's happened is people don't understand that. And if you really read the Old Testament, it sounds kind of brutal. And then we get modern sacrifice, which is what the devil does. And people say, well, what's the difference? Well, most Christians would never know how to handle that. They wouldn't know how to handle that objection. They would simply say, I have faith and I know God did it for a reason. And yes, that's true, but you need to be able to explain it to people. Okay. What is the explanation as to why God had sacrifice in the Old Testament? Let's go back in the chat for a minute. I know some of you are super sleuths. Now, the devil wants you to believe that the reason why there was sacrifice in the Old Testament is because he was the one who was supposed to be Yahweh. And people believe this nonsense. Even though Yahweh of the Old Testament, which we know is the Most High, protected the Israelites, who were the forefathers of Jesus Christ himself, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Yahweh protected them in battle. Why would the devil protect the bloodline of Jesus before he was born? He wouldn't. He would destroy it, wouldn't he? And who were the Israelites fighting? The Nephilim bloodline, which of course is the devil. So how can the devil be fighting himself? It makes absolutely no sense, but people believe this nonsense because they have not been equipped and prepared. Why did God require sacrifice in the Old Testament? Let me tell it to you straight. No fluff, no bells and whistles. It was all pointing forward to the ultimate sacrifice that Jesus himself would have to die. God in the flesh. God created everything. All the animals, all the wildlife, everything. And he knew he had to send his son. So he made a special covenant with a special group of people. The Israelites of the Old Testament. Pointing forward, reminding them every time they sin, this is what happens. Every time you sin, you're crucifying our Lord. Every time you sin. This is why he required animal sacrifice. The sacrifice was done in a way to where the animal just went to sleep and its spirit went back to the Lord who created it. He has the right to do that. And even if the devil said, oh, well, I can sacrifice too, he doesn't have that right. He didn't create the animals. So it was a reminder of what sin does. And the ancient Israelites had a special covenant with God. And I don't care what the Christian paradigm tells you. They tell you God doesn't change. And, Jesus fulfilled the covenant. Yes, he did, but not in the way they explain it to you. Jesus died on the cross so that the animal sacrifice could end. He took on all the sins of the entire world. That's why it's done. It's love. It's love. Because it could have been worse. There could have been immediate judgment on the people that sinned in the Old Testament, and then they would have died instead of the animal. So God was showing people the order of how it works and where we were when sin entered the world. This was the only way to deal with it. Either you die or the animal dies. And guess what? Through that, you start realizing, gosh, I don't want that animal to die. And I know that I could have died because of that sin. Thank you, God. And it's a love relationship. It's mercy. It's graciousness. It's grace. Now that you understand how our Christian religion has not equipped us and prepared us to have these kinds of discussions, now you know how the devil has his heyday in this entertainment media by second guessing God, undermining him. He's the accuser. Okay, so when he shows sacrifice, when the devil shows sacrifice in these TV shows, people, the first thing they think of is, oh, wow, God did that too. What's the difference? And as I just explained to you, there's a huge difference. Now, again, that was a special covenant that God had with a special group of people. They were kings and priests. Okay. They had a higher calling. God has different covenants for different groups of people. He had a covenant with Abraham. He had a covenant with Noah. There's multiple covenants in the Bible. Some of them apply to us and some don't. But the law is the law, and it fits together in a certain type of way. But I think we can all agree, God made a covenant with Abraham that he would, his offspring would number in the sands of the sea and the skies and the star in the skies, right? And that doesn't apply to us that aren't in Abraham's bloodline, does it? You see how there's different covenants for different people? Now, the law is the law and sin is sin. I understand that. But we don't send women out who are menstruating to, be alone by themselves for 2 weeks, which is what the Old Testament requires. Okay. We don't crucify somebody not crucify them, but I don't know what the penalty was, but there were certain laws that the Israelites were told to do that we don't do today. And it's not just because Jesus came and died for our sins. It was a special covenant. Now, let's hop off of that and get into some other aspects of this. So this series is a full frontal assault on believers who are seeking truth outside the Christian paradigm. It highlights these seemingly contradictory scriptures. It also undermines the role of the watchman, because with the detective that you're about to see here, she's kind of like the watchman, but then she essentially falls apart. Okay. And they want you to believe that the watchman, wow, they shouldn't be looking at this stuff, or, this is dangerous, or no watchman can withstand of seeing all this and trying to explain it to people without it pulling them into a dark hole too. So they depict all that. They depict the failure of the watchman, essentially. And as they basically depict the watchman as the root of the problem. Now, what else happens in this series? Well, let's just dive right in. Now, let me give you the backdrop. Let's go ahead and get started on this. This is the detective here, the woman you see on your screen. She and a nun from the Catholic Church, who basically she writes for The Guardian, which is the Catholic publication. And essentially, the nun shows up to the scene of the first crime with the detective, and she's super interested, but she has this fascination with true crime. The detective is a little bit suspicious at first, but she's like, okay, well, maybe you can help here with your perspective. Well, there's a dark side to this nun, but the detective doesn't figure it out till much later in the series as they begin to investigate a series of crimes. And the crimes seem to be targeting the detective. In one of the crimes, the perp actually names the detective written in blood on the wall. Now, again, the acting is really good in the series. I think it had an 80 or 90% Rotten Tomatoes. So you got to be very careful not to get drawn into the deception here, or not, and not to become like fascinated with this stuff. Okay. Cause this is dark stuff. Like I said, unless you're on the front lines, pulling people out of the fire, you guys, there's a lot of people so deceived now. It's scary. You look around, we live in 2024 where devout Christians have witches and demons and pumpkins sitting out in front of their house. I don't get it. It makes absolutely no sense to me. But here we are. And there's a small group of us who see the forest from the trees. We see the deep, dark deception. We're not sure what God's going to do with it. You know, I would hate to say that everyone that puts witches and demons and pumpkins on their porch, I don't know what God's going to do with that. I'm not here to judge those people. I'm just saying to you, it turns my stomach. You know, it's like we're living around a bunch of completely asleep people. This is why you have to look the evil straight in the eye with no fear for some of us to actually cause them to run away. Because we are given that power as Christians, true Christians, to tread on serpents. You're essentially casting out the demon in a way when we challenge these TV shows and show people the deception behind it. Now, what else is going on? Okay, so the murderer leaves behind a series of clues. It's almost like he wants to get caught. But the clues that he leaves behind they fit the exact symbolism that we've been covering for years on this channel. Some of this symbolism is exclusive only to this channel. Other symbolism is stuff that other channels have covered, but you're going to see all that play out right here. Now, I got through 90% of the series. There's one last episode. I'll do a second show for that. But what you're going to see next is black goo, which a lot of channels cover. Sulfur, which is more exclusive to our channel. The color purple, also exclusive to our channel, mostly. Watch this.
There was an odd liquid all over the house, and we still don't know what it is. A burning smell. Acrid.
Acrid? Smells acrid?
The smell changes every now and then, from citrus to amber, then rotting flesh, and so on.
Obviously, all the aspects that she's describing, the black goo that they found at the crime scene, is stuff that we've covered. Now, the nun isn't who you think she is. We'll get into the nun pretty soon here. But the African-American detective that you just saw, the lead character in the series, she was born on 2/23, February 23rd, which is 3/22 in reverse, skull and bones. We just covered another person in another series with the same birthday. And we called that out, didn't we? So now you know it's not just random stuff popping up. They cast these people in these roles for reasons, okay? Now, there's a subplot of the series, and that is that the detective's husband is in a coma. And she's struggling with this decision whether or not she should keep him alive on the ventilator or let him go. But let's watch a little bit more of this.
Something is happening around us. I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't know how it started.
So she's explaining how she feels like there's something dark that's coming. And this is kind of the feeling that I get oftentimes, like, wow, this world is really crazy right now compared to how I grew up. Now, I've went through stuff. I mean, I grew up around through the whole Gulf War and all that. Okay. So this was repeated on the news. I mean, you know, some people think, oh, it's going to be World War III. Well, we thought all that back in the 80s and 90s. It seemed like that. There was a nuclear threat back then. And, you know, America was bombing people into oblivion. You know, I lived through 9/11, of course. So, but this is different. There's something else happening, and it's in people. It's like they're changing. And she starts talking about this as she's laying on her husband's chest. And she says she feels like she's the only one trying to ring the alarm bells about the impending darkness.
Something is happening, and I need you. But it's like a hole opened up in the world to the center of nothingness. Nobody sees but me.
That's brimstone.
What?
Now, they figure out that the black goo is actually sulfur. Now, this is a topic that we have many videos on. We exposed this sulfur molecule. Remember, it's called the S8 sulfur molecule. It's an anti-prism. And we called it the crown molecule. It kind of looks like the Wonder Woman logo. And we exposed that because it's the shape of the One World Freedom Tower. In other words, the One World Freedom Tower is a giant sulfur molecule. It's an anti-prism. And we called out this whole concept of fire and brimstone. Remember? And I told you guys that the Freedom Tower was a combination of the two fallen towers smashed together and above and below. And it was a giant middle finger to heaven because it was brimstone, because this is how God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So they just built it back. Build back better. Right up to the sky. And then over the years, we tracked these lightning strikes and these odd sounds coming out of the One World Freedom Tower. And then I told you guys it was the crowning of the serpent because it looks like a crown. That's what an anti-prism is. So all this stuff we covered on this channel. And now it's being depicted here in this TV series.
From the Bible. It's what's in acid rain. It's a curse, biblically. It's what's behind the acrid smell you described before.
Large concentrations of sulfur dioxide.
Someone is messing with you.
Go on.
A third of mankind was killed by these three plagues, by the fire, the smoke, and the brimstone, which proceeded out of their mouths. The breath of Yahweh, like a stream of brimstone, doth kindle it. Book of Isaiah.
What's your name?
Now, you just heard all that. Crazy, right? Unbelievable. It's almost like either God has us one step ahead of these people, or they're watching this channel. Now, this foreknowledge gets very specific. It's going to blow your mind. But first, look who's on your screen right now. That's Travis Kelce. Now, when I saw him in this scene, I laughed out loud. He enters the TV series, I think in about the second or third episode, and he's an orderly in this hospital, and he seduces the detective. Now, we all know that Taylor Swift has depicted herself as a witch in a music video. And we know that some of the things she said and does in her music videos, you know, even if from the outside looking, because I try to think of a perspective from the perspective of people that are not awake. Okay. So how do we reach those people, right? You can't just call these people witches. You have to show some proof or talk about why you think they are, right? And the fact of the matter is that when they do a really witchy music video and it's not Halloween, that's something people can relate to. They can say, oh, yeah, that is a little bit odd. Why would they do something like that? That's really witchy. That's how you reach people. We got to rethink how we talk to people about being awake and not being awake, okay? Because sometimes we put people off or we isolate them or alienate them because we're on attack all the time, right? So, talking to someone about Taylor Swift, and you say, you know what? Isn't it? Don't you think it's weird that she did this really witchy music video and it wasn't even Halloween? And then that'll make people scratch their heads and wake up. But look at this. Here's Travis Kelce, and this is one of his, I don't know if this is his acting debut. Let me go back into the chat. I don't know if this is his acting debut, but essentially, he chooses one of the most horrific TV series I think I've seen in a while to do his acting. So that's weird, right? That's really weird. So this should seal the deal for us awake people about Travis Kelce, because, you know, we all thought, well, that's really weird that he's with Taylor Swift. You know, she's kind of like mainstream and kind of witchy. And he's supposed to be this clean cut, more like Christian guy, you know, conservative. And none of us realize, you know, we're thinking like, how could that relationship even work? They're two completely different people. But what they're doing is they're melding the two things together. This is the attempt of the devil. He's mixing the pot. He's stirring the cauldron. And so that people don't know what's up and don't know what's down. They don't know what's good. They don't know what's evil anymore, because it's all being stirred together and it's all being blown off as just innocent fun. It's innocent fun. Oh, we can all coexist together. It doesn't matter if I'm witchy and you're a Christian. It'll work. You know, this is what they want people to believe, and it's working. You see people making excuses for these people, right? Now, let's keep going here. and I'll be in the chat in a minute. We could talk about all this, but I wanted to present this to you. So here's Travis Kelce. This is hilarious.
Ed Lachlan, but you can call me Eddie.
Eddie.
Something tells me
Something old, brutal, and hellish is here.
Now, it's funny because Travis Kelce goes through this entire courtship with that detective in several episodes, and it's kind of spooky. And he's actually a really good actor, which is shocking to me. Like, how can a person play football so well and also be a great actor? So we're going to see more from him. He's probably going to be like the first crossover NFL football player to actually be able to act and play football, is my guess. They'll push him hard. This is why they grouped him with Anton LaVey's daughter. Taylor Swift. So now, what's going on in this scene? Well, the detective realizes that these killings are being directed at her. And at this point, she gets a little bit scared and she decides to go give her confession. Like, the nun pretty much convinces her, hey, maybe it's time for you to believe, be a believer. Now, this priest you're looking at here, he ends up being the killer. I'll just give you the spoiler there. He's the killer, and she's giving her confession to him.
His silence is essential to our free will.
I think that there has been a change in the basics of human nature. It's like the darkness that hangs in the air even when it's sunny and light.
I don't think that you're crazy to think that.
You sense it. Nobody can do anything about it. It's like God just locked up and left. Adios.
And so what if he did, Lois?
Now, next, the detective and the nun, they find this box at a crime scene. It's a little box, and it's got sigils all over it, and they can't open it. Well, the detective's daughter ends up opening the box. And inside, they find a GPS coordinate. So they drive to the GPS coordinate. And what do they find? They find an open pit, a bottomless pit of hell out in the desert. But then a fire starts, a raging fires roaring through the desert, and they barely escape the fire that's raging all around them. And they stop at this hotel, this little motel, I guess you call it. And it's obvious there's something not right about the motel. It's like possessed. There's all these violent people doing weird stuff, all these situations happening. And as soon as they pull up into this motel, they see a purple pool. A purple swimming pool. You ready for this? They say it's caused by copper ash. Now, this is another occult symbol revealed only on this channel years ago. We had a huge focus on the copper and how that plays a role in all this. Plays a role in possession, plays a role in time travel, which is possession. Let's watch.
Well, maybe there is some kind of hallucinogen in the smoke. Look at the fucking pool.
Why is the pool that color?
Has copper in it, and the copper will turn pools purple if they have a lot of chlorine. It's the ash from the fire. They interact, those chemicals. I mean, that's what Nick says. He's kind of our everything guy around here. When the wildflowers bloom, and the birds migrate, and the butterflies stop here, it's heaven. Though it can seem like hell.
What are you talking about?
Now, here's another concept that we sussed out years ago, the rise of the Terminator scenario, Skynet, the use of artificial intelligence to police humanity. We said it was here. We said that Skynet has become self-aware, and that the Skynet was going to police people instead of police. And so since we started talking about that, we've seen the rise of Palantir, we've seen the rise of Lavender, artificial intelligence software used to track down and hunt what they call terrorists, but soon it will be all of us. They're just practicing on the terrorists right now. And we've been trying to ring the alarm bells for almost a decade, haven't we? That it's us, it's humanity who is digging our own grave. We're building our own prison because we're the ones building Skynet. And once it becomes fully online, there will be no resistance, just like in the Terminator scenario. Let's take a look.
Artificial intelligence, autonomous cruisers, emerging technologies in policing, bonkers stuff. Animated robot police dog things.
No.
A whole network of cameras with a centralized brain that analyzes the footage.
So, everything we talked about, right? Specifically. Now, you could write some of this stuff off as coincidence, but I think at this point, everybody that follows the channel knows, if you've been paying attention, that these are all things we've been talking about. Now, at this point, the detective suspects the nun. This is toward the end of the series. She starts talking to her, you know how they do. She's like, wow, you sure did know a whole lot about these cases, and you start showing up to the crime scenes before anyone else got there. And so she's basically calling her out in a subtle way, and the nun knows that she's busted. She was actually hooked up with a priest, and they were the ones committing the crimes. Why? To scare people back into church. To scare people into the Catholic Church. And they believed to bring about the end times. So she calls her out in the kitchen. And it's at this point that even more very specific symbolism, only covered here on this channel, emerges. What am I talking about? The red bottom shoes. Now, before I play the clip, what did I say about the red bottom shoes about 7 years ago? Let's see who gets the answer. And then I'll play the clip, just so you know I'm not making this up. Now, I'll try to find the video that we did on the red bottom shoes in my archives, and I'll link that in the pinned comment below. But what did we say about the red bottom shoes? She gets the answer. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, a lot of people are feeling the darkness, aren't they? Laying on someone's chest when they are on life support is not recommended. I don't think we're in Satan's little season. There's a series of events that have to happen before that happens. And once 1,000-year reign happens, which is before the little season, that means the earth was remade. That means that everything should be paradise. That means animals aren't supposed to be eating other animals because God fixed all that, right? In the 1,000-year reign. So 1,000-year reign has not happened yet. That's another psyop that's going around, and it's very popular. The channels that are speaking about that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and views. It's very popular. Don't get drawn into that. Jesus has not come back yet. All right. What are we talking? Okay. Oh, what did we say about the red bottom shoes? That's the answer that I'm waiting for here. Because one of you knows the answer. The origins of it. And you're going to be shocked because they're actually going to repeat what I just, what I said about the red bottom shoes. All right. Good morning. Okay. Chat shouldn't be too far behind. Yeah, let's not be mean to people who believe that. I do have to call it out though. Yeah, so be nice because people, some people are just deceived, you guys. So we just have to be nice about it. Okay, red bottom shoes. All right. Okay, I think I'm just going to have to give you guys the answer. So what we said about the red bottom shoes was that the original red bottom shoes were worn by the Egyptian butchers because as they were butchering the meat, they were standing in blood. They didn't want to get their feet all bloody, so they wore high heels, and the bottoms of those heels, of course, were red. Remember that video from 2013? Well, listen to this.
Louboutin. Interesting choice. You know the history of the red soles?
An impulse buy. Between us, they're murder.
Prostitutes in New York City worked the meatpacking district. It was said you could tell a sinner by the blood on the bottom of their shoe.
Wow. Unbelievable. Now they changed it a little bit, but essentially it's blood on the bottom of the shoe, which is what we said before anyone said it. So I guess we were right. And it's pretty chilling, isn't it? How over the target we've been once you see these things disclosed later in entertainment. Okay, next, the purple symbolism. Another concept we were talking about. The mixing of red and blue together makes purple. We talked about the purple timeline of history, that we are in the purple rain, the last color of the rainbow, purple. And the fact that the enemy is now mixing the red and blue together, both sides. This is why I don't vote, because they're all the same now. Okay, they pretend to be different. They pretend to oppose the other side, and they feed off of conflict and chaos. So just last night, they're all over Trump again, calling him a racist. Why? Because he had a comic come on to his speech or to his rally, which was a huge rally in Madison Square Garden last night. Many of you probably saw it. And the comic was making some off-color jokes. Now, do I believe Trump is a racist? I believe all of these people at the top in their hearts are racist against anyone who's not rich like them. We're just fodder for them. They just pretend to be like us. Okay? So it's not personal against him. They're all like that. Trump knew what he was doing. He probably got the transcript of what the comic was going to say. So, of course, the right is defending Trump and the left is angry, and it's just creating more and more division. And if you buy into that and you don't realize that both sides are actually the same, they're working together for the purple rain, for the enemy, for the devil himself, then you'll just get caught up in this every 4 years. And you'll just be angry all the time at this stuff. And alienated from your family and friends. I mean, you think it's bad being alienated because we're awake? Well, imagine if you were in the right-left paradigm and you were emotional about all of this stuff. It got triggered if someone said something bad about Trump or something bad about Kamala. You would be freaked out, even way more than it feels isolating now. At least we know the truth and we have each other. And we can see the chaos raging around us. Now, at this point, so they start talking about the purple. Okay, this is crazy.
I made this punch.
What color was the punch?
Purple. Violet, really. It was awful.
The color of the punch, was it more like the color of a bruise?
So, lavender, purple. It's all there, you guys. Now, there's one last episode in the series, and it releases in about a week. And so I'll do a follow-up show with that last episode to get you guys finished with that. But obviously, I gave you the PG version. This is far, far, far worse. This is why I do not recommend this series. So, do you see now how effective a decode like this would be in helping someone see that this isn't just entertainment? I hope so. I hope so. All right, I'm back in the chat, you guys. What a trip, right? All right. Good morning. And look, I hate to keep bringing up things we've already covered, but you kind of have to do that. Otherwise, people will click on this and go, oh, this guy's crazy. So you have to show people the track record. It's not me bragging, and I hope it doesn't come across that way. It's just a record keeping. It's a record keeping of the past so you can see how everything fits together and about everything we've covered, okay? That's why I say it, and I just hope it doesn't come across as being conceited or trying to take credit or anything like that, because all the credit goes to the Most High. He's the one that reveals all these things to the people that take the time to actually dig and look and listen, right? Yeah, I think the chat's probably way behind. I'm sorry about that, you guys. There's a setting on here in the live stream thing here, and it's supposed to fix the latency issue, because it's what it is. It's latency in the stream that causes the chat to be behind. So I don't know why, but it still doesn't work. So YouTube's constantly messing with us, doing everything we can to make the stream flawless and seamless, but there seems to always be something, right? Always. Please thumbs up the video, and hopefully I equipped you guys with some ammunition so that when people bring up these conversations, you could even get someone could challenge you. They could call you out. They could say, yeah, you know what, I'm not a believer because I was watching this TV show and there's a lot of conflicting verses in the Bible, and let's say they pulled up that section about Yahweh's breath being fire and brimstone, right? Well, now you know how to handle that. You know how to handle that. Or they could say, yeah, I was watching this TV show and the Catholic Church, they're evil, and they're just as evil as everyone else. And we know that, but they're saying it for a different reason. They're saying it to basically try to discredit Christianity as a whole. And you can explain to them, well, the Catholic Church does not represent Christianity, and neither does most of the Christian churches. That's not how God wants us to be as a church. And you can explain why. So these are just tools to help you guys in these discussions. All right. All right, you guys, I'm going to pop off of here. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. I'm not sure what we're going to do tomorrow. Maybe a headline show. Maybe a re-upload. I don't know. Figure it out. Oh, I think I finally figured out what's going on with this truck. I know I said that the last time. But any mechanics out there, please chime in, because I finally got to the bottom of it. I had faith that God would reveal the root cause of this truck. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this? My truck was sick. It was sick with black goo. It's amazing how all this stuff fits together, doesn't it? It was literally choking on black goo. I opened up the throttle body, and there's black goo inside the throttle body. There was black goo coming out of the tailpipe. And at first I ignored it. I thought, oh, maybe it's because I put seafoam in it. Nope. The cause of the black goo in my Nissan Xterra, which I bought when I was still asleep. Crazy how this stuff fits together. The cause of that, I finally found a YouTube video of a guy who was talking about symptoms of what's called a fuel pressure regulator. And when those go bad on a car, it causes the car to basically choke on itself. Black goo in the throttle body and the tailpipe. Wow. I was blown away at the connections. It's almost supernatural, isn't it? Now, I tried to get to the pressure regulator and it's buried under the engine. I got to tear all these parts off and I just gave up. I put the car back together. I have to take it to a mechanic. I know a guy here. He's kind of a freelancer and he does good work and he doesn't charge too much. I think he only charges $50 an hour for, to tear into the car. And I trust him. He did a good job the last time. He put a clutch in for like $400 or $500. That's a deal. I bought the parts. He put it in. No problems. So I'm going to have him tear into it and remove the fuel pressure regulator. And that should fix the black crud that's choking up my Xterra. So, yeah, Snowball's a mechanic too. Well, it's cheap out here. That's why I keep telling people, got to come to Arkansas. Everything's cheap. Everything's about half price. Let's just put it that way. Everything you pay anywhere else, it's half price out here. Okay. And so that's great. Taxes, properties, mechanics, half price. All right. All right, you guys. Love each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.